Yay, everybody. Yay. Okay. Hey there. My name is Jessie Fresh, and I'm a sex and intimacy coach. And today I am inviting you to open the bedroom doors to embracing your inner feminine and masculine. So we're going to be revealing what everyday people are doing in bed that you never thought they did, so that you can discover what you've always desired and open the doors to possibility. And like open the door to your full sexual expression. So twice a month, I am opening up my little black book. And today I have invited the awesome, the amazing Terra Anderson. And if you're enjoying this content, please comment live, press like a thumbs up, subscribe, all that jazz. And just to let you know, like a little bit more about what it is that I do, I am a sex coach. So I work with women and couples to create a deep, intimate connection with mind-blowing sexual pleasure. And in my private practice, I often hear people are embarrassed of what they desire, and therefore they hide their desires and they're not living their life to the fullest. So my intention with this show is to show you that you're not alone. It's okay to explore. And since we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, we're going to share what's happening. So today we have Terra Anderson, and Terra and I met during one of the annual coach trainings that I attend for my licensing. And Terra was there like leading the conversation on gender diversity and inclusivity. And Terra is the reason that we use the proper gender pronouns at our events now and beyond. Like everything has been uplifted and changed and inclusive, and that's really important to me. So Terra, could you share with the viewers like who you are and what you do?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
So first thing I'll just start off with, since you mentioned pronouns, I use they, them pronouns.
Thank you.
Yes, I am a diversity consultant for the LGBTQ population. I also am a gender and sexuality therapist and an intimacy coach. I work mostly with queer folks around erotic reclamation and the intersection between identity and pleasure. That's really my sweet spot. It's the work that I do.
Thank you for doing that. So good. You had me at reclamation. Awesome. So could you tell us a story? We're talking about embracing our inner masculine and feminine. And I'm curious, like how you were introduced to that concept or yeah, tell us a story of how that began for you.
Well, it's not a very pleasurable story until the end, honestly. I have always been a fairly erotically curious human being my whole life, and very much built up this idea of what I like let's say at a time, the woman that I wanted to be. In the bedroom, the like kind of essence I wanted to bring to my intimate relationships, the body that I wanted to have, the way I wanted to present to the world. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. I won't only blame myself. I think society puts a lot of pressure on us too, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't really until I started dating that I recognized that there was all of this confusion in me about what role to play. So here's this really interesting piece of the story. When I identified as a woman and I was dating men, there was a script that was handed to me for how that relationship should go. How I should act, how I should show up in the bedroom, who should pay for dinner, like all of these things that are kind of societally scripted. And then as soon as that gender platter was no longer available, right? I had no idea like what to do with myself. It's like I remember the first time I really in my adulthood had a woman in my bed. We sat there and laid nose to nose for 4 hours before one of us kissed the other one. Yeah, it was like I just didn't know how to do like who makes the first move. There's all of this gender scripting that needed to be dismantled for me. Super difficult process to see how my conditioning was limiting my authentic desires, right? And that was the start alongside of a lot of just like gender questioning for me.
Mm-hmm.
of starting to recognize what is authentic to who I am and
Mm-hmm.
how I want to present, and what is the world telling me I should be, I should do.
Yeah.
And do those things align, or do I need to really start questioning how to bring my authentic self more forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that story because I think we all have some history of some messaging telling us how we should be and how that's different from who we are,
Yeah.
and how we can be more loved if we're different. That's how my story was. Like I was a boy growing up. Like I identified as like one of the guys. And that means that I had just a lot of brothers, and I also had a lot of guy friends and was a huge tomboy. And that was something that I would constantly get messages around of like, you can't wear what you want to wear because it's not girly. You can't dress like this because no one's going to love you then. Or no one will want to date you if you're not feminine enough or you're too masculine. So I love you sharing that of like when there's no conditioning and when there's no scripts, what's left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what does that make possible in the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
If there are certain positions you should be in or certain roles like submissive, dominant that you want to play, it just sort of all unfolds into this buffet, right? That then you just get to choose like, what is my authentic desire in this moment? And how does it relate to my partner's authentic desires rather than which role am I filling right now?
Yes.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I really want to open those doors to people. Like I want to open the doors of when there's when there is the whole buffet and when there isn't the like rules and like unwritten or unconscious agreements about how you're supposed to be. Like what can we explore that's possible?
Yeah. I think that's a huge question.
No. I like, what is the first thing that comes to mind for both of us, I guess, is what I'd want to share.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that come to mind. So hopefully I get to share both of them. The first one is really around just kind of breaking open that script of like heteronormative, which, you know, for those of you who aren't super familiar with that term, this idea of like the roles you should play in a heterosexual relationship, right? The girl looks like this and does this and opens her legs this way, and the guy does that, you know, all of those sorts of scripts. And that means that you can start to embody more power in different ways. You can start to play around with dominance and submission, receiving and penetrating, both energetically and physically, right? In like totally mind-blowing ways. Did you have a like,
we have to talk about energetic penetrating because that could be a very new thing for a lot of people. And I'm like, can you just appease me and tell me what your version of that is?
Yeah. That's a really great question, and I like that you say, what is my version of it? Not what is, like, what is it, right?
What is energetic penetrating, Terra?
Which is a question I can actually answer because it's gonna feel differently for each of us.
Yeah.
So the invitation is really like, explore what this means to you. So for me, my version of it so I'll just kind of put it on in my body, you know, just so people can kind of see this. So if I'm in a space of receptivity energetically, this is what my body looks like. If I'm in a space of energetic penetration, this is what my body looks like.
I feel it.
Do you feel the difference?
Well, I feel something coming at me in a way that's like, whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, hey.
Fierce, right? Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So
and all kinds of things showing up.
And that's a beautiful thing to mention because it impacts whoever's sitting on the other end in very different ways, right? Holding space versus filling space.
Yeah. If masculine and feminine was just named in that way, like holding space and filling space, I think I would understand things. I would understand the language a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what feminine is and what masculine is besides like pink and blue and like lipstick and body hair, or, you know, like just the boxes that
super gendered way we talk about that, right?
Yeah.
When actually masculine and feminine energy has nothing to do with gender at all.
Yeah.
Really, it has to do with like an internal sense of being, of how you're, you know, presenting and carrying yourself through the world, regardless of your gender. And so when it comes to sex, right, there is, if I was going to energetically penetrate during sex, for me, what that means is I feel this energetic body that is in some ways encapsulating the physical body, like the flesh and bone that is my physical self. And I can feel in that way, well, in my like gender fuckness, I feel it as a cock very much. That may or may not resonate with people, so choose your own apparatus here. But for me, I feel it as an energetic cock, where I can then actually take this thing that I can sense with my being that I have. It might not be made of flesh, but it is absolutely a part of me. And I can insert that into my partner all sorts of different ways.
Woo!
Yeah, in a way that my partner then actually feels the receptivity of that. And there's actually like a warmth or a friction that happens between us, even though there's like not necessarily any physical penetration happening.
Love that. One of my thoughts that came up in that is like, do you think that all of us have like the yin yang within, or do you think that it's like whatever the fuck we want and whatever the way we identify with?
Yeah, will you say a little bit more about what you mean about the yin yang within?
So I've heard people say like, oh, it doesn't matter that you're too masculine or too feminine. We all have both inside. That we all have the capacity to fill and to fill space and to hold space. And that like there's this equal amount of like 50-50 inside of us. And so I guess I want to explore that, and anyone that's listening, like, do you feel like that's true for you? Do you feel like you are equal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like it's fluid inside me all the time. Like in some moments, I was sitting, this is so funny. I was sitting on top of my partner earlier today, and we're just on the couch, and I was like straddling them, and I was trying so hard to tap into my feminine, and I could not fucking find it anywhere. I was like, where is this part of me that I know is so present in some moments when I just want, for me, the way it shows up is I just want to be held. I just want to be like caressed and cared for and nurtured. And in that moment, I was like legs open, like trying to really feel that. And I was like, I don't know where it is. So for me, it's not always 50-50. For me, it kind of flows in between quite often. And then the other piece that I would say is, you mentioned like, oh, you could like, what is this too masculine, too feminine? The TOO2 implicates that there is a standard that you should be, right? And that's the point of this, is to start questioning that standard. Like, is that standard coming from me? Or is that standard coming from society and the way that we were programmed to think about ourselves? Like that good enough, or that masculine enough, feminine enough, that's a script that isn't actually ours. It's put on us. And so this is an invitation to start to like unravel that and reclaim like what is my truth.
Right. Oh man, I feel like I could just cry the rest of the time and be like, oh my God, I wish I was told that as soon as I was told, like, you're not feminine enough to have a boyfriend, or for like someone to like be your person, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I also want to touch on a piece that I feel like our culture, like speaking from my experience, I am like a freaking worker elf. I am a high achiever. I am like a go-getter. I want to accomplish things. And that is what people have said, like, ooh, like that's really masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, yeah, I am filling the fucking space. Like I'm filling it. And when I fill it a lot and I fill it hard. And I recognize that it's really difficult for me to switch gears when I've been in that for so much of my day. It's like I refer to it as hanging out with my yang out. It's like if the qualities of yin are like resting and receptive, and yang is like directive and penetrating, my yang just hangs out, and then I penetrate everything. Meaning when I switch to something that wants to feel more receptive and open, it's difficult for me to pivot because I'm conditioning myself to be the like achiever.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't have any questions about that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on relating to the energies in that way, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that the first thought that comes up for me is just what stories do you then have about yourself because of those messages, right? And really being able to see the stories that we carry about filling the space and the intersection of those stories and our gender.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you were, for example, a different gender, you might have a different relationship to that feeling of like hanging out with your yang out.
Yeah, I'd yang out a lot.
For sure. And then the opposite is true, right? For folks who say are conditioned as men, who it's societally sanctioned to fill space, right? And that is in fact, what men are often taught is like the route to intimacy. That's like a deep, deep part of connecting in the way that men are conditioned. And yet if a man doesn't feel like naturally inclined to that, there's so many stories that come up about worthiness, about being manly enough, about all of these pieces. But the stories aren't actually his, the stories are society's.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he's good enough as he is, right?
Yeah. That's also, so one of the things that Terra and I both teach on is the erotic blueprints. And something that I see in the clients that I coach is that a lot of the cock-bodied people will be like, I am definitely this specific blueprint that is the blueprint that's known of filling the space really fast. And then when we actually test on their body, they are a different blueprint that's more subtle, that's more like explorational of textures and sensations. And it's like their script is that I have to be this way, and I have to identify with the porn that I've watched for me to be like a man in this world.
Right.
And that totally fucks with their sexuality, because then they're not actually fully turned on when they're playing.
Or all of the pressure that then comes with filling a role that isn't innate to you.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what does that do for your ability to connect? You're not coming from an authentic place. Like, whoa.
Oh man, that explains so much in my mind. Whew, okay. What turns you on about this?
Oh my gosh. I've got like a hand on my pussy, as you said.
And the people in the chat, like, what turns you on about this conversation, about this concept, about using this in the bedroom? Like, what is hot about that for you?
I love that. I'm so curious to see other people's answers. Yeah. So for me, if we're talking about erotic blueprints, I'm the blueprint who wants it all. I'm like that human being that really needs variety to be able to change it up. And so when I'm talking about internalizing, both masculine and feminine energies and being true to myself around those spaces, what happens is that I just get to be in my authentic desire in any given moment. It doesn't have to show up the same way every single time. There's so much versatility and variety. I remember, gosh, for the first 6 months that I was dating my current partner, we would, like, every time we would have sex, at the end we would do like a little sex debrief, like, what was great for you about that? You know, like, what would you like to do? Totally. Yeah, it was great. And every single time we would lie there in bed, like, all sweaty, looking at the ceiling or looking at each other and being like, how many different ways can we fuck? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what's hot to me about it, is that when the scripts fall away, there's so much possibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. I love also that in that process of playing in desire and it not meaning anything, that it reduces the shame.
Exactly.
Like, if you think playing with your butt is like a specific thing that specific people do, like, imagine the freedom of if you're just like, I just have a body and this just feels good.
Yeah.
There's nothing that it means and there's nothing that it makes you if you enjoy it.
Yeah, like, imagine what would be possible for you in the bedroom if there was no shame. Imagine what would be possible if there was no script.
Love that.
There was no expectation.
Like, bye, this interview's done. Let's go do other things. This is like a pep talk.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Love that.
I'm seeing some comments like, what turns me on about this is people's freedom to express and to be able to ask for what they want. And sex debriefs are so sexy. Yes, they are. And people are saying, yeah, I get bored really easily. So I want, like, what Terra wants, of like lots of variety and lots of creativity. Yes. Okay. So is there any advice that you would give to someone that's like, that's wanting to be like, great, the next time that I have sex with myself or sex with someone else, I'm going to drop any script. Like, how can we empower people to do that and what that looks like?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to offer 2 skills.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is to listen into your body and to watch the stories that come up and just start to name them. Like, name them, oh, judgment, oh, fantasy, oh, future tripping, oh, there's the laundry on the floor, oh, you know, like, you start to name the stories that arise for you and let them fall away and tune in again to what is the authentic desire? What way do I want to touch myself in this moment? And giving yourself loads of permission to get distracted often. And then loads of permission to come bring yourself back over and over and over to your pleasure. And getting to know that, like, that listening muscle where you're just like deeply in tune with your desire. That's almost like one of the best skills that we can build.
Yes. That's a meditation skill.
Yeah, it's a meditation skill.
Awareness. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, when you put things into the mental folder, if you imagine like a manila folder for every to-do list that you think of while you have sex and you put it in there, it automatically will sort and go away. Just like what you're saying of judgment, any other category, put them in a category in your mind and they usually go poof, gone.
Yep. It's so bizarre how that happens.
I love it. Thank goodness that hack was founded. Yeah.
The other skill that I want to offer is, this might be done, I mean, if this feels like a comfortable place for you to explore with a partner, great. If this is something that you would prefer to do on your own, please give yourself permission to do that. But this is a practice of exploring, if I was XYZ, then I would do this. And so it gets to be like, if I was more masculine, then I would feel pleasure this way. If I was androgynous, then I would feel pleasure this way. If I was a woman, then I would feel pleasure this way. And just try it on and sort of see, like, what makes your body light up or relax deeper or feel more like you, and just start to play in that. And from there, skills will naturally develop. You'll be like, oh, I found this cool new hack where I can penetrate my partner with my energetic cock, you know? Like, those sorts of things start to arise.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I also thought of when you said to listen, that when you hear yourself should on yourself, when you're like, oh, I should be like this, or I should be doing this more, or I should, whatever it is, know that a should is like a story and a script that's coming up for you.
Beautiful.
Love that, not shoulding on yourself.
Yes. Me too.
Don't should on yourself in the bedroom. It's very messy.
Yeah. Unless, of course, you're kinky like that.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Oh, I love that. I also want to just peek in on this experience that I had recently that you were present to see and witness, and that this can be something that you can explore as well, as like the way that you express yourself in your clothing, the way that you express how you want to act, how you want to feel, how you want to feel authentic in you, and noticing like what clothing you have in your closet that was influenced by you buying it because you thought, oh, I should buy this for myself because then I'll be lovable, or then someone will see me as attractive. I recognize like coming into my own identity of what my image was super difficult because I had so many different scripts of what I needed to be. I thought I needed to wear pink so that boys would like me. And I hated pink. I had this experience where on our last coach training, I decided to embody a different persona of mine, an erotic persona. And for y'all that are like, what is that? That's like you're reclaiming a part of you that you've either denied along the way of your development, something that you had to hide in order for it to feel like it was safe. So one of mine was like my inner lumberjack. And that's like my inner, like dirty, strong, go-getter, that's like attuned to the senses. That's a part of my eroticism that I have had to hide away for a long time. And in playing with that, I decided to dress up, and I thought it was going to be just like super light and fun. Someone said, "You look hot in plaid, Jessie." Thank you. I had a full beard on. And that was actually like my first time really stepping into like embodying a different like part of myself that identified as like cock-bodied. And that was a huge, like I actually had a really big response to that where days later, and even now I'm like integrating from that experience. So I want to invite people to try on clothing that you enjoy just because you enjoy it. Because it's just clothing. It doesn't mean anything. You can wear silk pajamas or like lace, no matter who you are.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yes. And one of the things that you're speaking to here that I just want to highlight is that this is for every single gender out there.
Yeah.
Like trying on different clothing, like trying on this idea of if I was a different gender, then I would feel pleasure in this way.
Right.
You know, trying on those things doesn't inherently mean anything about the way that you identify.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to give ourselves permission to play outside of the box so we can find what is really, really true for us. And that doesn't mean that anything about the gender you identify as or your worthiness in that gender is going to change.
Or who you want to sleep with.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything about that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. I think that's a beautiful point. You know, historically, sexual orientation and gender expression were super interwoven. Like people thought they meant the same thing almost.
Yeah.
And that is so not true. Like, you can express yourself in any way and have that mean nothing about who you want to be intimate with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
this conversation is really, really healing for me, and I know that people are trying to be more aware, and I just hope that this conversation creates more of that awareness of like the labels we put on kids, the labels we put on ourselves, the things that we think kids can play with in terms of toys. So many, it means so many things.
It means so many things. Yeah.
Also, when I used to work at a sex club, like as the person that tells everyone about the boundaries, and if my grandma's watching this, she's going to learn that. So when people, I would see such a transformation at the club because people would often enter the space and go change in the bathroom. And the way that they changed in the bathroom when they would come out was like this whole other avatar. And when I would ask them like, oh, like what made you change into that? Like, what are you, this is so different from how you presented when you first entered, is they would say, you know, if I was safe to dress like this all the time, I would, but that's not the case.
I just got chills all over my body.
Yeah. So when like you can wear high heels, no matter what gender you are, you can wear anything. So I love those spaces that allow for like freedom of expression in every way, where it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
And that's when people are like looking the most fierce, because they're just feeling themselves so hard that everyone else is like, yes. It's seductive in a way, because you're like, you're owning who you are so much that it's attracting.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that.
There's one other thing that's coming up for me that I want to just speak to here. Yeah. So this conversation we've stepped into is not a conversation that we hear very often.
I know.
And these roles, these scripts, these kind of gender expectations are deeply, deeply ingrained in us, such that they are, we receive messaging as kiddos that this is what makes us good or bad as humans. This is what makes us lovable or not as humans.
Right.
And so as we start to kind of split these things open and like figure out, okay, like what box do I actually fit in? Or like what box do I like want to let go of? You know, all of those sorts of pieces. You're likely to have a lot of feelings come up. And there can be such a deep vulnerability hangover, shame, backlash, all of those things. And I just want to normalize that. It's like we are playing with this string, like the fabric of our society here, like the strings of what we are told makes us lovable humans. And that's a really deep process and a deep, deep, deep level of reclamation. And so be really tender with yourself. Maybe even have a plan for as you exit these sorts of like times of play for like, how are you going to take care of yourself? Who's going to be your support system? Like those sorts of things to really be able to integrate what you learned.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I can't tell if you're paused. I think you're freezing. Okay, there we go.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Will you say that last part again? Just the very last like sentence, because I'm not sure if it digitally happened.
Yeah, so I think the invitation is when you go into play around masculine and feminine and really reclaiming some of these parts or exploring some of the things you haven't explored before. The invitation is to have some sort of plan about how you're going to take care of yourselves afterwards.
Right.
If some sort of shame backlash or vulnerability hangover happens. So who are the support systems, like people in your life that are supportive? Are you going to run yourself a bath and eat lots of chocolate? Are you going to, before you go into your play, write yourself a love note that you're going to read afterwards? You know, like those sorts of pieces can be so helpful to integrate and really give yourself permission to be in love with what you found.
I wish I would have known that by last week, because when I came out to like 156 people on our like coach training Zoom call, I had a total like meltdown during, after, like I couldn't write with a pen. I could not learn. I was like, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for the current partnership I'm in? Who am I? Who am I? I thought I knew who I was. Who am I? And like, who can I talk to? Because even the closest people that I have around, I was like, I'm very fragile right now. And if anyone were to say something that was a little bit judgy or like place blame on me, I think that I would have like had a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It speaks to how deep this stuff is inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you know, the deeper you go, the more tender we should be.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jessie.
Yeah. Well, another part was that I was like, oh, if I could just go on a walk, that would be great. But then I realized I have a full beard of makeup on my face. And what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
I automatically did not feel safe.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, this is really hitting me for how many people that don't feel safe, that feel like it's authentic for them to not be in a specific look of presenting.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess in that, it builds compassion for others as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Awesome. So I love, you just hit on the next question of like, what would you wish you would have known in the beginning before you started? And you just said like creating the aftercare before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else that shows up in that for you? I'm trying to think of my thoughts on that too.
I mean, and this kind of brings tears to my eyes just like thinking about my like little self.
Yeah.
And the way in which that version of me was told I should be in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, I wish somebody would have just said, Terra, what you love and how you want to be in the world does not make you good or bad. And just give me permission to like be with my personal exploration. Like you get, like if someone would have just said to me, you get to be whoever you are. The boxes that people put around you mean nothing about you. Like I feel like my whole, I would get 20 years of my life back.
Yeah.
If someone had just said that to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I give back years of therapy.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. These gender norms are keeping therapists in business.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish there would have been, I mean, I had people in my life that were totally accepting. And then all it takes is one influential human to just like really ingrain their views on little kiddos. And yeah, I've had so much processing work with therapy where I'm talking to my little self that's like, hey, it's okay if in the family photo you want to wear overalls and not the velvet blue dress. Like, you can be you. And it doesn't mean anything. No one in your family is going to reject you.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. And the reality is, for a lot of us, our families do reject us. You know, and so I want to just speak to that there's a lot of work on a family level scale, on a community level scale, country, world.
Yeah.
You know, we get more and more macro. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for building safety. And in yourself and in your intimate relationship, that gets to be place number one.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
That kind of goes right into like a follow-up question of like, I recognize the work that you're doing. So can you share with people what it is that what you're doing? Because I kind of know a little bit about what you're doing, but I want to like spread it out to everyone.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So there's two big facets of my business right now. So I founded a couple of years ago, I founded a business called Embody Emerge that's dedicated to ending gender and sexuality based oppression. And the pieces that I really work on right now are twofold. The first one is I do intimacy coaching for people who are really looking to deepen around gender roles and allowing themselves to kind of break free of these expectations and reclaim their erotic power free from those scripts, right? So that is a lot of it's based in erotic blueprints, and then we kind of bring in this gender piece.
Yeah.
The second part of my business, the one that's kind of taking the front seat right now, is around supporting other sex educators, therapists, health professionals, coaches who want to reach diverse communities to serve the LGBTQ population with confidence. And so I run a certification program that's a 4-month program supporting folks to really gain the skills, the knowledge, and the reputation that they need in order to do that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So reach out to Terra if you have any questions, inquiries, if you would like coaching or beyond. And I just want to open up any questions that you all have. Like if there's any questions for both of us about this subject of embracing your inner feminine and masculine, type that into the chat and we can do our best to answer those right now.
I love reading these comments.
I know, me too.
Sweet.
So one thing that's really cool too is that we can't see who's typing them, so it's totally anonymous to us who is like showing up, giving us love, commenting in these ways, and I'm like, is that who I think it is? I have no idea. Let's see here. I love this. Okay, I don't see any questions. So I'm curious if we can both put on like our beginner minds and like channel our youngin or like a client that we've had and think of like a question maybe that could be important for people navigating this. Ooh, okay. Okay, I see one question on here. For me, masculine energy equals action, stillness, groundedness, and feminine energy equals chaos, flow, connectedness. What does it feel like to you?
I love that question. The question, what does it feel like to you?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it acknowledges that these things show up differently for all of us. You know, especially when we use masculine, feminine in a gendered way, we have this idea of what it should look like, right? You see like the pink and the blue and the apron and the chainsaw and the whatever. Those are my associations. And those are super problematic, right? And a lot of times, you know, we put masculine, feminine on a specific gender. So what it feels like to me in my body is, you know, and I honestly have to give myself space for it to show up differently in me at any moment too. Like I almost feel like in trying to name it, it almost like sticks it in a box and negates its natural ability to evolve. So in this moment in time, giving myself permission for it to change, masculine energy feels like I have roots. And I'm like like a tree, like real strong and erect in my body. And feminine energy, let's see if I can tap into it now because it's hard to there. I feel like the earth, like like supple ground.
Mm.
Like there's this forgiveness and this holding that happens in this moment. That's the imagery and the like sensation I get in my body.
Mm. I also imagined like when a tree is just like doing its thing, like swaying and moving with the wind, and it just being like firmly rooted in the ground. Yeah, I've heard other analogies like the rock is the masculine and the feminine is like the water flowing around it.
Huh.
I don't know. I'm like, who made this up?
Exactly. So counter question is like, it's like what part of us needs to name it? Like what part of us needs to categorize, to lasso it in, you know, and when does that part serve us and when does that part not serve us? Right?
Yeah. I agree with that. That's the biggest takeaway for me is like when I put a box on like I'm being to this or to that, like who says so? I just am who I am, feeling what I'm feeling. And some days I'm one way and some days I'm another. And it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see another question. Tips for approaching partners for playing with masculine, feminine energy. Ooh, that can mean so much.
I would say first tip, talk about it beforehand.
Oh yeah, before you're naked.
Yeah, like what is it going to mean for us? What are we actually playing with?
Right.
And get, you know, consent and agreement and like fuck yes on both ends or everybody's ends, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you just brought up a really great point. Like when I do partner dancing, there's the lead and the follow. And those are just like roles that we put on. And one person's making choices and choosing a direction. And the other person is making choices and choosing a direction, but they're also listening within. Both people are doing the same exact thing. It's just one person moves first. And so in that way, I see that again as fluid of both of those energies of like who's leading and who's following and then who's switching.
Yeah, totally. And I would add a little like Betty Martin plug in here and say, like, who is it for?
Right.
Like, are you leading because the pleasure for you is in practicing leading? Or are you leading because the pleasure for your partner is in following?
I love that.
And that level of conversation around the masculine and feminine play, so that each partner can feel a container to really explore what is pleasure for them in this practice.
Yes, I love that. You just highlighted for me why I love being a follow, because I'm like in decision fatigue most of my life, that when I get to step into following, it feeds me in that way. And that's what becomes pleasurable, is like I don't have to make any choices besides what I need to do in those subtle moments.
Yep, totally. So another trick, for most of you who are in heterosexual relationships or heteronormative relationships, let's just do a little practice. So like take your thumb and this little like crevice in here and just kind of put it gently together. So like bring your thumb in and then take a finger on your other hand and go ahead and just like squeeze it in between and start to feel like, feel the finger that's going in between. Just notice the pleasure that's in that finger, right? Yeah.
I feel like a child.
And then feel the pleasure that's in the fingers that are being penetrated.
Ooh.
You see how you can move your consciousness around there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really good place to start if you want to like incorporate toys, incorporate like different kinds of avenues of exploration around playing with that like different consciousness. Am I like feeling penetrative or am I feeling like I want to receive?
Oh, you are bringing up a really good point that I had the other day. something that my roommate and I have been playing with is if our inner masculine or feminine were to make love to us, how would we make love to ourselves in that way?
Oh my God. Yes.
Like how, especially like in quarantine, if you're like single and you're like, oh my God, I just so badly need someone else. How can you imagine that someone else being like that divine version of you?
Yeah.
And like becoming your own best lover.
Yeah.
Holy shit, someone said.
I love that.
Oh, I so love it. Okay. Any questions? Just scrolling. Yes, this is the best fantasy for me. These are like 30 seconds behind, just to let you know. Okay. Cool. I think all of the questions have been answered unless you have any more. So let's talk about like, I want to create some homework for people. So I'm trying to think of like the baby step for people to explore this. So I'll come up with something and then Terra, you can share like what a baby step would be. Part of what I really like to play with is putting on the mindset that there are no boxes and how you would walk if there were no boxes. If there was no version of you needed to be in any specific way, like if you were to take a walk around your neighborhood, how would that feel? Stepping into that in your body. No one's going to know what the hell you're doing, but it's a really fun way to like take that tiny step of like putting on that fantasy character of what it is you want to feel more of and just trying it out with how you walk, how you move, how you would observe, how you would listen, how you would speak. Just trying it on.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that.
Your turn.
I'm gonna have a hard time probably with this baby step thing because I'm gonna let's just dive in.
I mean, there might be some people that are like, yeah, I've already done that walk around the block, Jessie. Like, so do both.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So,
I'm not putting anyone in the baby box.
The baby box.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how many people have ever been curious what it would be like to have a body part that isn't physically part of their body. Yeah. So I love someone says, I'm ready, let's dive. Yeah. So my invitation is to do a personal visualization about having a body part that isn't a part of your body. So whether that like is oftentimes I think about like having like a giant dangly dong.
Is that what you call it, a dangly dong?
Dangly dong, that's what came out of my mouth right now.
All right, giant dangly dong.
I'm not sure I would use that word in the bedroom if I was trying to turn on the partner.
Dong. Yes.
That's where I'm at right now. So yeah, so like what would it feel like to feel that soft phallus move between my legs? And really just like sinking into the body sensations with it and staying there. And staying and continuing to stay and sticking with it. Rather than for a fleeting moment being like, oh, I don't have that, I'm letting it go. Right? But really like feeling as much as you can possibly manifest the sensation of physically having that body part, playing in that. And then maybe
would you
that,
like smoking it?
Oh, well, that's step 2. I was trying to go baby steps.
Okay.
Yeah, I will straight up say, oh my God, like there are so many freaky ways you can have sex with body parts that aren't physically attached to you. For sure. And for those of us who are expanding into being like really energetically sensitive, it's really beautiful to have that visualization and not only keep it in your mind, but actually start to move your body as if that was the truth. and feeling what that feels like, feeling the warmth and the tingling in your hands as you're like stroking that energetic cock, or feeling like the inside of you move as you're like, you know, penetrating that like energetic vulva, like the pieces, right? And really sticking with that visualization as just like play, like it's like adult playground time. Like, you know, let's just play in fantasy land.
I love that. Also, I just want to touch on that, like all of our body parts are similar. Like the tip of a cock is the clitoris, you know? And so that really blew my mind when I understood that, of like how we all come from the same cloth, and our genitals are just like mutations. And so you can imagine whatever you have being something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they literally, like based on the genes that you have on your sex chromosomes, the same skin, like the skin of your labia comes together. If you like have a testicular sac and a penis, the skin of the skin that would be the labia has come together and fused. That's why you kind of got that line.
The same,
right? Yeah. So like literally all of our parts are actually the same parts. They're just configured slightly differently.
Yeah. So I'm going to think of my labia as like my balls. And like my clitoris as like my gigantic shaft and head. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Someone said my body is lighting up at the prospect of playing with this.
Yay.
What are some projects that you're working on that maybe people can tune into, or anything else that you want to add to that menu that you already stated that I know you're doing a lot?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing that's going on in my life is enrollment for the next cohort of the Queer Competency Certification. So that's a big thing. So if you're really interested in learning more about serving queer and trans clients in the work that you do, this is an opportunity to jump on board. Classes start in August, and so we're doing a big enrollment push. We've got about 10 seats left in the class right now. Yeah, and then there are a few other things I'm working on. I run blueprint classes online every once in a while. I just did one for the virtual intimacy retreat, which is epic. It was 36 presenters from all across the world. There's another one happening in July.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm getting ready for that. Yeah, I think those are the big pieces that are rolling in my coronavirus world right now.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for specifying.
Yep.
Awesome. I have some upcoming projects of I'm going to be teaching next week sex and sensuality for the super sensitive. So that's for everyone that feels like that identifies that your nervous system is just like extra highly wired, to where that kind of interrupts and changes your pleasure and how often and willing you feel to engage in pleasure, because you might feel overwhelmed or you might feel like misunderstood. And so this class is all about understanding how to open up to pleasure more, how to create and build safety in your body, and how to like feel like a fucking badass in your subtle energy receptivity. So that is on May 22nd. And I'll post something in the private Facebook group if you want more information. Thank you so much for joining me on this. This was so fun. I'm like, what is the next one going to be about with you? Yeah. So actually the next webinar that we have for opening the bedroom doors is with Juliet, and Juliet is going to be teaching us about sex magic. So how to manifest the things you want in your life by using the power of orgasm. So that is May 29th, and that's going to be earlier because Juliet lives in the UK. So we're doing that at 11:30 a.m. So I'll post all that information in the group. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for being awesome. Yes, can we please get the links to these events, please? Yes, of course. Yes, and Terra's information you can totally post in there as well.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Okay. If we were to blow each other a kiss in, like, if we were embracing our inner whatevers, I'm not even giving them labels anymore. I'm just like slate, the clean slate.
Beautiful.
Let's blow each other kisses, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else is watching.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night. And